who is some of the toughest receivers, like I said, outside of myself, that you feel like you faced? And we'll get toward the end. We'll get your top 3 to 5 receivers of all time.
Oh, man, toughest I had to face. I mean, obviously, like you said yourself, we had some battles.
Right.
You know, and me being so young in some of those battles too, man, it taught me a whole lot as I continued to play. Randy Moss humbled the hell out of me. You know what I mean? Going up against him. He's a tough cover. Calvin Johnson, just by sheer size. Like, how do you deal with 235? You know, an interesting story, man. I can remember, and I was telling Nate Burleson this. We were at the Super Bowl last year in Miami. We were all chopping it up. And, you know, he actually was telling the story. And it was so funny hearing him tell it because, you know, the way I saw it was totally different. And it was the first play of the game. We were playing Detroit. And my coach was like, look, you following Calvin Johnson around all game. First play of the game, we're going to call cover 2. Just run up on him. Yeah, just smash him. Just hit him. Let him know it's going to be a tough day. I'm thinking, all right, cool. That's all I got to do. All right, man. So the first play, I'm off about 8 yards. I start walking down almost like it's a trap coverage. As soon as they hike the ball, I run up and just hard as I can hit Calvin Johnson. Yeah. Helmet slid down over my eye. Yeah. There's a run the other way, dog. I kind of go to the sideline and say, hey, coach, that ain't work. We ain't doing that.
Like, call that off. Hey, because you know what's funny? Because, again, special receivers, we always have this debate with, you know, fans saying this corner's covering you. But I'm glad you explained that you guys went cover 2, so that gave you the ability to come up and jam, because if you was just single safety press, like, you wouldn't have did that on that play. Now, you're one of the few corners to follow receivers, you know, side to side. So, of course, all respect goes out to you. But people got to understand, a lot of them corners out there, when they got that safety over the top, they're not being as aggressive because they're not that good.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you know, I understand where my place is in football. You know, like I said, I thought I was a really good corner, but I thought I was a really great football player, just being able to understand the game and see things. And, you know, I might be in man-to-man here, but if the quarterback's looking the other way, like, I'm trying to go make a play, right? And so, you know, for me, you know, when I watch players like Marcus Peters play, I love watching him play. And it's not necessarily because he's the best man-to-man lockdown corner.
Right.
But I know he's going to give my football team an opportunity to win because he's going to take the football away.
Absolutely.
And I feel like as a DB, you got to take the football away. Like, there's a lot of great people who claim they're great DBs. But if you ain't getting the football, man, you just knocking down PBUs. Like, people didn't fear Deion because they were scared that he would pick it. They feared him because they were scared he was going to pick it, and it was going to be a highlight 6 the other way.
Yeah, he take that ball away. That ball's important, man.
You got to, for sure.
So, yeah, you know what, of course, it's a bigger story than I even thought. Of course, T don't know, and you probably don't know. But, again, so when you faced T on that Monday night, I didn't know that was part of your coming out party. You know what I'm saying? Because as a receiver, of course, T goes say the same thing. T saying, well, if I had over 100 yards, I had a pretty good day versus this guy. But as outside looking in, the commentator saying you have arrived because you played T so well in certain situations in that game. How did you feel like after that game? Were you like, okay, yes, I have arrived because I played an all-pro and I played well? Or were you still like, I still got to get better?
Well, you know, the whole setup to that, first of all, I reached out, you know, Hatch, when you reached out to me about being on the podcast, I'm like, bro, you got to tell T he got to hit me. Like, I just, you know, because I know we've had some fierce rivalries, you know.
Right.
And it could be, you know, anybody who's just watching it could think, man, we hate each other. And
right.
Not the case at all. Like, I'm the biggest T.O. fan. My kids know T.O. Heck, my 8-year-old's over here listening to every word. Look at T. So,
awesome.
You know, so for me, I guess the success came from just accepting the challenge, man. Like, I was 21 years old.
That's part of it.
You know, I was 21 years old, so I was a young dude, and T.O. was the man. You know, like, you're not gonna stop a dude like T.O. It's just not gonna happen. And so the first half, I think T had 8 catches, 7, 8 catches.
I don't know.
I don't know. But he had a lot of catches, bro.
Right.
I'm in the locker room at halftime, like
this is it.
I got another half. I got another half, and then I just remember Jim Moore, who was our head coach at the time. He was a DB guy. I don't even know. I'm sure T remembers him because he was in.
Yeah. He was in San Francisco. He was a defensive back coach there.
Yeah, and so he was just, hey man, get up on him. You got to play him like this. He was just throughout the course of the game, and it was just the moment, man. That was the year that T&M had lost in the Super Bowl to the Patriots, but they beat us being the Falcons in the NFC Championship game. They didn't even play in that game.
Nope.
And they won. And so, the job was to try to look, if we can handle him, we got a chance to win that game. And so, I always want the pressure. And obviously in the first half, he whipped me pretty bad, but in the second half, I don't even know how many catches he had, but it wasn't the 8 he had in the first. And we
right.
We end up winning the game. But I tell my kids all the time, it's not how you start. It's how you
I
think in today's society, so many kids see this instant gratification, this instant fame by Instagram, all these different social media sites. They get all these likes, and they forget, like, at the end of the day, bro, you still got to work. Like, you know what I mean? And so that's probably the number one thing, man. Like, I just remember watching a special, and T was going to work out at like 10 o'clock at night. And I think ESPN was showing it, or somebody was showing it. And I was just like, man, if you want to beat your opponent, hell, you got to train like your opponent. So I started getting midnight. I'm in the Falcons facility by myself.
Nice.
Lifting weights on the treadmill that season, all that off season. Just trying to get my mind right, because it was a point when I first got in the league, man, when I was going against Randy, I'm like, bro, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this is harder than I thought. I started to slow down. I stopped trying to make every play and just make that one play. You know what I mean? Start understanding, I got a safety. Why am I biting this? Or why am I jumping this slant when there's a cover 3 and somebody going to buzz under the flats? If he catches it, just make the tackle. Like, once I started understanding some of those things, it really slowed the game down, and I was able to make some plays.
It's funny that you said that. Like I said, you saw a special, you saw T.O. working out at 10 o'clock at night, and this is what I'm trying to explain to the kids as well. It's like, you have to do more. And when the Clippers lost last week, right, the only thing I was waiting to hear from the Clippers is saying, you know what, we're going to take 2 days off and we go start working out again next year. But I'm not hearing that out of the Clippers. So, because it goes back to that, of course, just The Last Dance. We're huge Jordan fans on here. So when Michael came back and he lost that game in Orlando, and they were out the playoffs, and Michael said, hey, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to see y'all to start getting ready for next year. So I don't think people understand the way you have to start getting ready is going to be the process. You don't start getting ready during the season or when training camp starts, when everybody else gets ready. You got to start when you first feel that in your gut, like, yo, this dude out here is doing something different, or I got to do something different. And I think just going back to, real life, the Clippers, what I'm hearing, all that, I'm hearing nothing about these guys getting back in the gym already. And if they ain't doing that, they don't got a chance to win it next year. And it kind of goes back to the difference between athletes of 10 to 20 years ago compared to athletes today.
Oh, yeah. It ain't even close, Athletes 10, 15 years ago, it's just the dog mentality, man. It was, I felt like it was a higher level.
Right.
I love LeBron for everything he's done off the court. He's such an influential person, in our society, especially for young African Americans. He's done a whole lot. But I kind of like I'm the kind of guy, I ain't going to team up with nobody. You know what I mean? That's just why I've always kind of been a Kobe guy, because just that mindset and that mentality, it's like you can't coach that. As a dad, you want your kids to have that kind of mindset, I love LeBron, like I said, but I'm always a Kobe guy, MJ guy, because if someone comes to my team, cool, but this is my team. Like, I am not going to somebody else's town, nobody else's city, to try to win no championship. Even though, like I said, played 14 years, never got one. I'm kind of wishing I would have made my way up to New England at some point.
Yeah. Go ahead, T.
No, but I like what DeAngelo said earlier, as he mentioned his kids, especially his 8-year-olds, and he touched on something for me is that, a lot of these kids, as he said, they don't know the grind, they don't know the process. I think a lot of kids look at a lot of these social media platforms from your Instagram, Twitter. You think about the likes, the YouTube. They don't really know the true measure of success. And these social media platforms, they're not it for it. So it's our duty as men, especially DeAngelo Hall, who's one of the premier corners, again, that I faced, that have played in the National Football League, to share that wisdom with his kids, because, again, they can get caught up in the hype with their peers, with their friends, with their other or what have you, classmates and things of that nature. They have to understand the grind. And for me, we didn't have social media, but I knew the grind for me is that I knew that I had to work a little bit extra harder than the ones that were around me, whether it was in high school or college. And then when I got to the pros, like I said, I knew that I wasn't as good as the guys that were drafted in that draft class. I had 11 or 12 guys that were drafted before me. So when you think about now playing against guys like Champ Bailey, DeAngelo Hall, the Darrell Reeves, Jason Sehorn's, not really Jason Sehorn, but the top.
Yeah,
don't
put Sehorn in there.
Right, but that's the thing is, like, when I was starting to come out of my shell, they were starting to find guys that they felt like that could shut me down. That obviously these guys were drafted like first or second round. Like I said, I came from UT Chattanooga. I didn't go to a top Division I school, so that's where when you talk about having that chip on your shoulder, I didn't necessarily have that chip, but I knew that I wasn't as good as I wanted to be. So I had to be the best version of myself. So I knew facing a lot of these great defensive corners that I was going to be facing, and then eventually like DeAngelo Hall, I knew that I had to put in that hard work because I knew that I wasn't good. So I was a realist in a sense. So again, I like what DeAngelo said. It's like, you have to trust the grind. You have to go through the process, because a lot of these kids, they're looking for that instant gratification. They want to work out for 1 or 2 weeks and then think that, okay, I've arrived. I'm ready to go. It doesn't happen in 1 or 2 weeks. I just had this conversation with my nephew. I try to treat it like I try to tell him, like yesterday, I was like, yo, it's almost like a bank account or a big glass jar that you got and you trying to fill it up. At the end of if you start putting something in that jar every day, every other day, every week, by the end of the year, you ain't going to be able to pick up that jar because everything is adding up. So that's why I try to tell kids and put them in the mindset of the process of what it takes to be successful and reach their goals. So I appreciate you sharing that insight, DeAngelo.